Young-joon responds softly in his sleep when Miso calls him Seoghyun oppa, then slowly wakes up, fully alert. He doesn't say anything, so Miso asks if his name was ever Lee Seoghyun. She tells him about his mother saying, Arhyun, when they talked about the kidnapping, but Young-joon shrugs it off, saying he just reflexively answered her voice in his sleep. He takes her home, and when he's by himself later, he remembers how deeply Miso cried while they were locked up. He sighs, quietly thinking, you don't need to know. I don't want to make you cry ever again. In the morning, Miso visits Young-joon's mother again to ask if Young-joon has ever changed his name. His mother answers tensely, saying that Miso must have misheard her say, Hyun, but Miso insists that she heard correctly. With a firm tone, Mom says that the boy she was kidnapped with was Seogyeon, and that she doesn't know anyone named Hyun. Determined to get some answers, Miso goes to Seogyeon and asks if he remembers anything after reading her diary, like what their kidnapper looked like. He says he doesn't remember anything, and that he wonders if it's not so much that he can't remember, but that he might be subconsciously choosing not to because it was too traumatic. He goes to get her diary, and Miso can't help but think that his memories sound like things he's heard from someone else. While she waits, she sees photographs of two young boys on a table, and she recognizes one of them as her oppa. When Seogyeon returns, she asks him which of the photos is him, and he points to the other boy, the one Miso doesn't recognize. Jia is thrilled that her work commute is only 5 minutes now that she's in her new place, but she freezes when the office team expects her to throw a housewarming party. They pressure her into having a party this weekend, but Miso politely declines when invited, saying that she has a family obligation. Now that she knows who her oppa really is, Miso has another concern. Why is everyone telling her Seogyeon was the one who was kidnapped? She wonders if Young-joon really lost his memories, and if she should keep pretending she doesn't know the truth. She gives Young-joon his schedule for the day as usual, and he asks her to come to his place after work. He looks adorably innocent when she hesitates, nervous to go to his house after dark. He asks what she could possibly be thinking of, and whether her imagination is running away with her. He says he just wants to organize his personal library, acting all cool and sophisticated until Miso purrs, of course, oppa, and he nearly falls out of his chair. He asks her to say it again, and the soft, sweet way she calls him oppa makes him fall for her all over again. He says he'll allow her to keep calling him that, but she chirps that she's over it now, and his dismayed expression is priceless. Poor guy. Miso arrives at Young-joon's place a little early that night, surprising him in his bathrobe and not much else. He covers his embarrassment by saying that he doesn't want to shock her with his muscular physique, and as he goes to dress, Miso gets a glimpse of the scars on his ankles again. Pilnam calls, and when she learns where Miso is, she calls Young-joon a selfish jerk again. Young-joon overhears Miso telling her sister that he's not selfish and that he's better than she thinks he is, and she finally says to stop worrying about their relationship. She starts to cry again after they hang up, and Young-joon realizes how much it upsets her that her family opposes them. He's confused, having thought that they'd be happy to have him in the family. Naturally, he assumes they're just overwhelmed by his perfection, and he chastises his reflection for not being more imperfect. While Miso organizes his documents, Young-joon tells her that he heard her on the phone with her sisters, and he promises to calm their concerns soon with his irresistible charm. He makes Miso laugh, but he's serious about wanting to convince her sisters so that Miso won't cry anymore. He drives her home later just to spend a little more time with her, and he asks her on a date the following day. She says she has a family gathering this weekend, and Young-joon asks if it's the same trip she and her sisters go on every year. Before she goes inside, Miso reaches into her purse and pulls out a finger heart. Smiling playfully, Young-joon reaches up to pluck the moon out of the sky for her, and Miso runs inside, embarrassed at their cheesiness, so he blows it up to her window like a kiss. Yoshik comes to Young-joon's house later that night, huffing and sighing until Young-joon asks what's wrong. Yoshik says he saw his wife with another man, and Young-joon says he should have done better when they were together. Yoshik protests that he bought her anything she wanted, made her breakfast, and was even good to her family. Young-joon perks up at the mention of family, and he asks what Yoshik did to make his wife's family love him. Yoshik quickly figures out that Young-joon wants to win over Miso's family, and he tells him to act like one of the subcontractors who try to win his company's favor by proving his worth. In other words, he advises Young-joon to leave his pride at home. When they get to their island rental house, Miso's sisters ask why she's so downcast. Pilnam guesses it's because of what she said about Young-joon, but she repeats that she's just worried her little sister might date the wrong man. Miso says she just doesn't know him, but Pilnam changes the subject before Miso even finishes talking. Back in town, the office team head to Jia's for the housewarming party. The landlord suggests they take the party to the roof since Jia's place is so tiny, and no matter how hard Jia tries to discourage them from going up there, they insist. So she goes up first saying she needs to tidy up, and she warns GWI that a whole group from work is on their way to the roof. GWI tries to run for his apartment, but the team comes upstairs too soon and he ends up diving under the bench to hide. They all make themselves comfortable and settle in for a long night of eating and drinking, with GWI quietly trapped right beneath them. Miso and her sisters make delicious-looking watermelon soda concoction, but before she even gets a bite, Miso freezes when she sees Young-joon standing nearby. Startled, Miso pulls him aside to ask what's going on, and he says he wants to ease her sister's worries about him. Her sisters join them, and Malhi asks if, by chance, they're already dating. Young-joon says that they are, and that he knows Pilnam and Malhi are worried, but he assures them that he and Miso like each other very much. He invites them to a hotel suite he booked, and to have dinner at a fancy restaurant where he made reservations, but Pilnam says that this is exactly why she worries, because he lives in a very different world from theirs. Young-joon offers to join them for dinner at the restaurant where they made their own reservations, and even Miso looks concerned. They head to an all-you-can-eat crab place, and the sisters tell Young-joon that the restaurant makes a profit because they use very cheap ingredients. Young-joon swears he can handle eating cheap crabs, even when Miso gives him one last chance to back out. Over dinner, Pilnam asks the couple why they still refer to each other formally. On the spot, Young-joon tells Misoya to call him Oppa, trying to sound casual but clearly enjoying it. He's a bit confused when Malhi keeps eating well after she's full, and Pilnam says he must not understand why someone would want to get the most for their money. He takes it as a challenge and digs in, smiling determinedly as he stuffs his face. He looks so sick by the end of the meal that even the restaurant owner jokes that he'll probably never eat a crab again. Back at the house, Miso tries to send Young-joon to his hotel to digest his huge meal, but he insists he's fine. Pilnam and Malhi come outside dressed in pants for clamming, and at Young-joon's confusion over why someone would work on their vacation, Pilnam sneers that he probably has a personal chef to cook for him with the freshest ingredients. He decides to go clamming with them, saying he can do anything as long as he's with Miso. Jia can't even enjoy her own housewarming party, knowing that GWI is stuck under the bench, his stomach growling at the scent of all the food they're eating. The team decides to move to the shade, and Nam just grins at them from the floor when they move the bench away from him. He shouts, "Surprise," and pretends that he was invited to the party all along, and that being a creative person, he decided to make an interesting entrance. He and Jia make cranky faces at each other as they eat and drink, still clearly not on good terms. Sarah volunteers to go on a bear run, and while at the store, she eats up several sausage samples and gets a tongue lashing from the sample provider. Suddenly, Cheol appears out of nowhere and grabs several bags of sausages, and he orders the person not to embarrass Sarah any further in public. Miso and her sisters start clamdigging as they wait for Young-joon to show up, and eventually Pilnam and Malhi decide he must not be coming. Miso yells at them for being rude and repeats that Young-joon isn't the kind of person they think he is. She snaps, "He protects me when I'm scared, and he's always considerate of me. You don't know anything." All three sisters' jaws drop when they spot Young-joon striding across the mud flat, wearing overalls, rubber boots, and even a sun visor. Pilnam snaps that his fancy equipment is no match for their years of experience, and Miso suggests they test that theory. They split into two teams, Pilnam and Malhi versus Young-joon and Miso, and make a bet that the team that digs the least clams owes the winning team a wish. Young-joon wants to know what Miso will wish for if they win. She says she'll wish for her sisters not to hate him, which makes him even more determined to win. He digs furiously, and he and Miso win the clam-digging contest by a margin. Miso makes her wish, and Young-joon amends it to asking them for a chance to show them how sincere his feelings are for Miso. Malhi visibly softens, and although Pilnam tries to keep up her stern demeanor, she has a hard time hating Young-joon when he catches her from slipping face-first in the mud. She notices that his hands are freezing, and Miso accuses him of upsetting his stomach by eating so much crab and drags him off to find some medicine. Malhi notes that he made himself sick just to impress them, deciding that he's not as much of a snob as she thought. She says he seems like a nice guy despite his physical shortcomings, and that she likes him. She tells Pilnam to lighten up on him, and later, Pilnam insists on pricking Young-joon's finger, a home remedy for upset tummy. He whines like a baby before remembering to put on a brave face. They're preparing for dinner, and when Malhi asks Young-joon's help needing some dough, he punches it like it owes him money. He tells Pilnam he feels better, and she grumpily says she'll prick his finger again the next time his stomach is upset. Sarah and Cheol get back to the party just as everyone decides to relocate to a pub. The landlord shows up, and Nam hides behind a squid so she won't see him and say something about him living in the rooftop apartment. After she's gone, team leader Jung asks what he's doing, and he says he's going to sing a song like on King of Masked Singer. Unfortunately, he's a terrible singer, and team leader Jung stops him after only a few lines. He tells Nam that he doesn't need to go so far to try for a promotion, assuming he's kissing up because he happens to be wearing a t-shirt from team leader Jung's alma mater. Suddenly Cheol hides his face behind the squid and says he wants to sing. Of course he busts out, "This is the moment," from Jekyll and Hyde. His voice is strong and beautiful, and Sarah nearly faints, she's so impressed. Later, when she's a lot more drunk, she runs into Cheol in the hallway. She warns him not to try seducing her just because he bought sausages or picked up her falsies, and he's smirking by the time she growls a bad impression of his singing. He trails after her to make sure she doesn't fall, grinning widely as she tells herself out loud that she thinks she likes him. She rolls an ankle, and Cheol swoops over to catch her from falling as, from somewhere, "This is the moment," swells romantically. After dinner, Young-joon says he'd like to attend this family event every year, and Pilnam grumbles that it's too soon to say that, but there's no heat in her words. Miso says their dad usually joins them but was busy this year, and Young-joon notes that it's an unusual tradition. Pilnam explains that when Miso was only 4, they'd made a promise to their mother. In flashback, we see the family traveling to a music festival in a borrowed car. Dad sings along with the radio, making little Miso wail that he has a terrible voice, and Mom defends Dad. He promises to win the singing contest and give Mom the trophy as her birthday present. The sisters had spotted a beach, and they decided to stop for a bit. Dad had lost the car keys in the rocks, which had caused them to miss the festival. He'd pouted that he was a bad husband for not winning Mom that trophy. Miso had shrieked that she found something, but instead of the keys, she'd found her first clam. The girls ran off to find more clams, but Mom held Dad back to keep looking for the keys. He'd quoted Michael J. Fox, "Family is not an important thing, it's everything." He'd said he could always win the contest next year, but that day, he wanted to focus on his everything. Mom had thanked him for making this a great birthday after all, and they decided to make it a family tradition to go to the beach every year on her birthday. But Mom had only gotten to experience the tradition once before passing away. Young-joon realizes that today must be their mother's birthday. Pilnam is sad that Miso doesn't remember their mother well, having been so young when she died. She apologizes to Young-joon for the way she spoke to him, and she says that she can tell he's a good man who really cares about Miso. She says that she wants Miso to have a family and be deeply loved, so she worries about her little sister being with a man who isn't ordinary. Young-joon promises to make sure she has nothing to worry about, because he wants Miso to be as happy as they do. Meanwhile, Seogyeon is troubled by what Miso said about his complete lack of memories of their kidnapping. Young-joon's mother is also worried, remembering how Miso had asked if the Hyun she mentioned was actually Young-joon. Dad finds Mom and asks what's wrong, and she says she thinks they should tell their sons the truth. Miso and Young-joon go for a walk together, and Young-joon says that he thinks he won her sisters over. He admits that he feels bad for intruding on such a meaningful day, but Miso says she's glad he came. She thinks her sisters must also be glad, especially since their mother's birthday is one of the happiest days for them. Young-joon says her mother must have been a wonderful person to have raised such a lovely family. Miso tells him that one day her mother collapsed after they came to this beach, and her dad was always at the hospital with her. She says that one day she was playing alone, and her mother came to see her. They played together, which made Miso happy, and she only learned later that her mother had just found out she was dying. She says her mother must have been very sick, but that without that memory, Miso might have forgotten her completely because she was so young. Miso tells Young-joon that if he has a painful memory like that, she hopes that one day he'll open up to her about it. She says she'll wait patiently and always be there for him. Young-joon pulls her into a hug, looking sad. Young-joon's mom sits Seogyeon down and tells him, 24 years ago, the person who was kidnapped wasn't you. We don't hear the rest, but later Seogyeon wanders the streets in a daze, muttering that it must have been him. Young-joon and Miso head back to work together for a showcase event. Young-joon complains that he's tired and wants to go home, and Miso tells him that he can go after the final event. He goes to talk with some colleagues, and Miso finds her seat for the last event, a magic show. Seogyeon arrives, still dazed, and he sits next to Miso. When she asks why he's here, he says in an emotionless voice, "She said my memory is wrong." Do you believe that? Miso can't look him in the eye. On stage, the magician introduces his assistant, a famous model. She descends from the fly space, sitting on a swing, and the first thing Miso sees when she looks up is the model's high heels swinging in midair. In an instant, she's thrust into a flashback of the kidnapping, and everything comes back to her in one huge rush of memory. Miso sees her kidnapper, wearing those red heels and tying a rope with red-tipped fingernails. The kidnapper yells, "Your father's at work." "What are you talking about?" Miso's own young voice whines that auntie is acting strange. The woman climbs a chair, the chair falls over, then Miso sees her legs dangling limply just past the doorway. Little Young-joon tells her, "No, Misoya, it's not your auntie. It's a spider. A big spider." He'd told her not to come any closer to the doorway, but she'd screamed, "No, Oppa, don't leave me alone. I'm scared." Miso stands, shaking violently, and she gasps, "I remember now," before passing out. Sagyeon rushes to her, but Young-joon is there a second later, pushing Sagyeon aside as he gathers her into his arms and begs her to wake up.